Howdy, folks. It's been a little while since I made a little video just kind of checking in on how things are going, so I thought I'd do that again here on quiet Sunday evening here in the studio. It is mid-August, and it was my birthday last week, actually, which was pretty nice. I am 58 years old now, uh, and the world is an interesting place, and I'm doing my best just to soldier on, and I've been doing fairly good the last few weeks. So since I last shot a video. So what I've been doing when I haven't been kind of working and spending time with my kids, I've been here in the studio working on stuff. Sometimes it's just kind of hanging out, noodling around on the guitar, or playing with clay, or just kind of more therapeutic kind of stuff. Um, but mostly it's working on comics. In fact, I've gotten to the stage, I think I showed you a version of this last time. I've gotten to a stage where I'm printing out kind of early zine versions of what the comic would look like. This one is not trimmed down. Normally it would be trimmed off the extra top and bottom and sides here. I didn't bother trimming this one. This is if you look closely, it says version 3. So this is the third printout that I've done because I keep increasing the page count. So the last time I showed you this a little over a month ago, I think it was standing at 32 pages, and just yesterday I decided to increase it to 48. It had gone up a bit earlier to, I think, 36 or something, plus the cover. And the reason I kept increasing it is because as I go through, well, I'll just do a quick flip through here. As I go through, you'll notice that some pages are relatively, uh, kind of completely penciled, and then others are a little less definite, and then still others are very sketchy. Back in the 80s, which is kind of the period partially being covered by this series, one of the big animation projects back then was the adaptation of Akira by Katsuro Otomo. And they would actually release these production reports. So this is kind of a production report for my new comic, Return of the Tesla Twins. And I even did a little count for how complete the various pages were. 'Cause I basically went through and said, well, how many have not been started at all? How many are just like very sketchy, just kind of roughed out? How many are kind of somewhere in between? And how many are basically fully penciled and ready to be inked and finished and lettered and all that stuff? So nothing is completely finished. There are 0 pages that are completely finished. I'm still working on. I have started getting to the kind of finishing stage of a few pages just to try and work out what that's going to look like, and what effects, if any, and all that sort of basically digital post stuff. Most of the pages, 30 of the pages in fact, or 31, are at I'd say roughly 80% complete. So they're at the pencils are about as finished as I want them to get, and they're ready to go on and be inked. There's a couple pages, basically the inside, front and back covers, that I'm putting in a kind of halfway done category because they're laid out, but they're also mostly going to be kind of text and small illustrations. It's more of a design job than a drawing job, so I'm kind of leaving that to closer to the end. And then there's a dozen pages, and those are basically the new pages that are sketched but not really drawn. And then 3 pages that are at 0%. They're not even started, really. What's been good about expanding the page count is it's given me a bit more breathing room for a couple of the thing about this book is it's basically a collection of short stories and short comics. Nothing is longer than, I think the very longest story is 9 pages. Um, there's another one that's 6, and a couple more that are like more in the 3-4 page range. And there's a lot that are just 1 page, 2 pages. Um, and that's kind of how I've always worked. I've always been a short story writer, so one of the reasons I'm kind of excited about this project is because it is a platform for short comics that are nonetheless kind of related to each other thematically, if not literally. Um, so anyway, expanding the page count has allowed me to kind of balance out the different elements that are working there and allow me to introduce or resolve, if maybe not resolve, but move further down the line something that gets introduced earlier in the book. I did think about breaking it up into two 24-page comics, which would be a perfectly fair thing to do, and maybe I will, but I actually kind of like the idea of one big 48-page initial issue. I'm not sure that subsequent issues would wind up being that big. The original plan for this one was going to be 32 pages, basically the standard size of an American comic book. But you kind of go where the project leads you, and that's what feels best for this one. So that's what we'll do. So that's the update on Tesla Twins. I guess the only, on the production of Tesla Twins anyway, the only other observation I would want to make at this point is just how interesting it's been as part of a function of that, expanding the page count and kind of retooling in my mind what this project is going to look like and what it means to me and what it's saying, if anything. It's been very interesting from a writing perspective because there have been times when I've basically just added pages not knowing really what they're going to be. And just, I think it was just this afternoon or maybe this morning, I was kind of going through my mock-up here and I come across some of the blank pages. There's a few here towards the end. And so one thing that I do with these printouts is I mark them up. And I'll make notes to myself, saying insert a page here, doing this, move this page over here, punch up something about this, and so on. So I'm making notes to myself to be resolved as the book develops. And the nice thing about coming across these blank pages is it basically gives me a chance to almost storyboard out, well, what could go here? And sometimes I had a nice experience today where I had just had my usual weekend visit with my kids, and I've got a long walk from there to the west side, from the west side to uptown. Sometimes I take the bus, sometimes I don't, depending on weather and my mood and so on, but normally I like the walk. And I got to thinking about the holes that needed to be filled in the comic and the story, and I had this mental image of these kind of conversations that a couple of the characters would often have with each other. They're kind of two scientists who are constantly collaborating on stuff, and also have kind of not exactly a romantic relationship, but a flirtatious relationship, perhaps. And this scene just kind of popped out of nowhere, where I imagine one person coming in to a room and slapping down a blueprint for something, and the other person says, well, what's that? And the first guy just says, jetpacks. and the second one's like, huh, tell me more. And then so it becomes this thing about developing this tech. And it was just a little seed that I realized, oh, that actually kind of fits what this kind of gap that I've got for a few pages for this other character. So I started thinking along those lines, and I've had a few experiences like that now where I'm looking to fill a page, or figure out another way to extend a theme that's been introduced earlier, and I just have a weird idea like that I realize, oh, that could actually kind of go here. And I guess that's one of the advantages of kind of fragmentary, almost stream of consciousness short story writing is it's not hard to kind of bolt something on elsewhere and see what kind of interesting sculpture you can create. So anyway, I'm enjoying this whole process with the Tesla twins. Unfortunately, the fact that I keep adding pages to the book means it's going to take that much longer to get done. And I think realistically at this point, it's probably not going to get done until the end of this year, early next year, that kind of thing. But I am making good progress, and I don't actually want to add any more pages. I think it's pretty good at 48. I think that's a good size, both in terms of the stories being told and the format of the project itself, but also just budget wise, and the all the fun publishing side of it. Will my gear even handle creating something that size? And it will, but I think it would get adding more pages at this point, and more complexity would make it that much tougher. So that's where I am now, and I'm liking where it is and where it's going. When I'm not working on that, the other main thing that I've been working on is the beta version of a kind of story generating card game called Story Mode, which I developed about a decade ago. I've got some cards here. They're in like little penny sleeves. This is a design for the beta version of the game. The previous version was the alpha version, and it basically consists of a core deck of certain things that kind of always belong in a story. So a conflict, man versus nature, man versus God, man versus man versus whatever. Various themes, crime does not pay, or love conquers all, and so on. And then there are 4 kind of theme decks for different kinds of stories that you might want to tell. So there's a young adult theme deck, there's a Western theme deck, so the characters are all cowboys, and the props are all, revolvers, and the storylines are about claim jumping, or, stealing the farm, or whatever. There's a pulp fiction deck, and there's a Shakespeare deck. So it all adds up to about 200 cards, I believe, in the alpha version, and a few kind of suggested ways to play. You can kind of play it Pokemon style, where each card is assigned a numeric value, and you kind of build hands or you can do it, basically as a way to feed ideas for an improv scene, or some other kind of story generating, teaching even, some kind of purpose, educational purpose. It's meant to be very flexible by design, and there's also blank cards if you want to add stuff of your own. So the beta version of the game is going to be a little more polished design-wise. I'm going to add some card art. I'm going to add at least a couple more theme decks. There will be one, I believe, for horror, maybe one for science fiction separately. And then I had a couple of ideas for a couple of others as well. I also want to add some cards to the existing theme decks and kind of sharpen those up a bit. I want to add an expansion for basically cards about queerness. So, you can kind of use those judiciously. Build your decks accordingly depending on what kind of flavors of queerness you might want to include or not include. Um, and then just a few other expansions that kind of give you more options. So that's the beta. That's the plan for the beta release. I hope to get it done sometime next year as well. At this point, I'm basically just hoping to get stuff done in time to do a bunch of shows next year. I really hated to miss Decaf this year. It just wasn't possible. Was that last weekend? I think it was. Um, it sounded like it was a great time, and there's some pretty great looking books there. So I'm hoping to catch up on that sometime this fall. Um, but yeah, so working on Tesla Twins comics and story mode cards, and those are really my two main occupations here in the studio at this point. Um, I I've been thinking since moving back about uh, hosting some kind of little zine fair or open house of some kind. I still want to do that, and in fact, I've been thinking about having a regular, like maybe quarterly or 2 or 3 times yearly show called Zap, uh, which would stand for zines, art, and prints. The difference between art and prints being original pieces of art, probably small works like under $100 kind of things, and prints, which you could have multiple copies of. You could also make prints of your originals that you're selling. Whatever, don't care. But that would be what the show would include: zines, original art, which would include some of my original pieces of comic art, um, and then prints as well. Not sure when the first one of those will be. I would really like to have the Tesla Twins comic done before launching it at a show like that locally. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I've been pretty busy with work, which is good, of course. But this is also kind of the busy season for that work, and I may have a bit more breathing room in the fall. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, back at it. Thank you all for listening and for your interest, and looking forward to showing you more roughly this time next month. Thanks. Bye.